Hello, my name is Marcelina Lirius and welcome to Math Monday. In this video, we're going to describe the effects of parameter changes on graphs of quadratic functions. Before we start, I want you to get ready with your pen, your notebook, and if you have a graphing calculator, that would be helpful. So what happens if, given the parent function y is equal to x squared, in this case, the coefficient of x is equal to 1, so that's the value of a, which is 1. So what happens if the value of a changes, or also if the sign of a changes? Then we will also describe the effect when h and k changes. So starting with the parent function y is equal to x squared, a here is equal to 1. A is the coefficient of the quadratic term. So when a is positive, the parabola faces upward, okay? So this is now we're describing the orientation. And when a is negative, the parabola faces downward. So that's the effect of changing the sign of a. Now what happens if we change the value of a? So the transformation from y equals x squared to y equals ax squared when a is, okay, when a is equal to 1, we have the graph here where the vertex is at the origin and the parabola is facing upwards. So if the value of a is positive and greater than 1, okay, when the value of a is positive and greater than 1, how does this graph compare to the graph of the parent function here? Okay, so the effect of a is on the width or the opening of the parabola. So as we change a from 1 to 3, okay, a here is equal to 3, the graph narrows, okay? And if our a on this graph here, on the graph here, is a number between 0 and 1, so it's a fraction, or you can have a decimal between 0 and 1, notice the effect on the opening of the parabola. So the parabola becomes wider, okay? So to summarize, the value of a has the effect is on the width of the opening of the parabola. The bigger the value of a, in terms of absolute value, the narrower it is, and the smaller it becomes, the wider the opening of the parabola is. I'll pause to give you time to process and take down notes. Again, the effect of the value of a is the width of the parabola, and the sign of a is whether the parabola is facing upward if it's positive and facing downward if the value is negative. Next, let's look at the transformation of the parabola when our k now is not equal to 0. So this is our parent function, y equals x squared, a is 1, and we transform this into y is equal to x squared plus or minus k. If you have your graphing calculator, graph y is equal to x squared, and check if you arrive at this same graph. It's facing upwards because a here is 1 and it's positive. Now what happens if we add a value k, plus or minus k? Let's start first with the graph here on top, okay? So our parent function y equals x squared is the red graph. Okay, that's the red graph here. And we have here added plus 3. Okay, we added plus 3. So the value of k here, when you look at this blue graph here, or the purple graph, this graph is the original graph moved k units up, 1, 2, 3. So each point on the vertex is moved, each point on the graph will be moved 3 units up. So the k here displaces or moves the graph k units up or down. So it's a vertical shift. In the same way, when we have the graph here, when we have the function y is equal to x squared minus 5, the graph of this function as it relates to the parent function or the parent graph, which is the red graph here or the red parabola. So notice the translation, you have x squared minus 5. So which means that all points on this red graph will be moved 5 units down. 5 units down. So the green parabola is now the graph of y equals x squared minus 5. So take note, if the value of k is changed, plus or minus, okay, any value, then the effect is a vertical shift. Okay, plus k means k units up, minus k means k units down. Okay, take down notes and process the information. So the effect of k here is the vertical shift. Either k, if it's plus k, it's up. If it's minus k, it's down. Okay. Write this down on your notebook. Okay. Now what happens if we change the value of h? So in this case, we will consider again the parent function, and let's only look at the change on the parameter h. Okay. Y equals x squared is graphed on the side. It's a parabola facing upwards. Then let's start with the value when h is 3. So when h here is 3. If you solve for x here, h becomes 3, and that's the value of h. When you're looking at x minus h, you solve for h, you have x is equal to h. That's why h here is equal to 3. So look at the red graph. Okay, the red graph is y is equal to x squared. When we change this now to x minus 3, the quantity squared, the graph is shifted 3 units to the right. So h equals 3 means 3 units to the right. Okay, 3 units to the right. Be careful because this is a common misconception, because when students sometimes think because it's x minus 3, they have to move to the left. That is not the case. You have to solve for h here. H is equal to 3. Now let's compare to the graph of the function when h is negative. Okay, so if we solve for h here, when you have x plus h here, you actually solve for the value here of, okay, h here is negative 4. So h negative 4 means you move 1, 2, 3, 4. So the vertex here is moved 4 units to the left. Be careful. Again, the main confusion here, when students see the plus sign, they think that they have to move to the right. They have to move to the right. It's not the case. You have to move to the left. And the effect now of the transformation or the value of h is a movement from left to right. So this is a horizontal shift. Horizontal shift. Okay. Unlike the value of k, when it's positive k, move up, negative k down. In this case, when you have h is positive, okay, when you have an x minus h, it's actually a movement to the right and movement to the left if it's x minus k. Copy? Okay. So now let's look at the transformation on these two graphs here. Let's start with the first one. From the parent function y is equal to x squared. And earlier we know that this is a graph, those vertices at the origin. And if we start looking at the vertical shift or horizontal, let's start with horizontal. How many points did we move to the right? Okay, so 1, 2, 3. So this is a horizontal shift to the right, move to the right. And from here, we moved 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 units up. Okay, 3 units to the right, 4 units up. Again, the up movement here or the vertical shift is denoted by +4. And the movement to the right is actually an x minus h, which is an x minus 3. So if we write the equation of the parabola, it's actually this: y equals the quantity x minus 3 squared plus 4. Then I give the second parabola here for you to analyze for your practice. And that concludes our lesson for today. I hope to see you next week.